The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. I want to start off with a random topic of the day because this seems to always push some buttons and get some shit stirred up, which I like to do. And it also probably gets me some unsubscribers from the weak sauce, thin skin type people that I don't want on my channel anyway. I just want to reiterate some stuff I said about con time Deion Sanders and the race baiters that come running in here as I said they would. And just let y'all know, man, I just want to make it crystal clear with y'all. Y'all think that if Deion comes out and they upset TCU in the first game of the year or something, maybe that's going to shut me up. Colorado's going to win a few games. That's going to shut me up. No, it's not. Because it's never been about wins or losses with me and Deion. It's just the kind of person he is. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Y'all put all this emphasis on people's success at jobs, making them a decent human being. And that's just not the case. I mean, just look at Joe Paterno in the Sandusky situation. We all know, we knew about that crap. Here recently, Pat Fitzgerald. Same thing with Deion Sanders. He's a selfish bastard. He's narcissistic. And he just portrays this image of himself as some kind of gangster. And then he don't want his players doing the same thing that he's doing. He's a big-ass hypocrite. And that's why I will never stop grilling con time Deion Sanders. Now, moving on from that, today's topic, I saw a video with John Kurtz interviewing the athletic director at BYU, Tom Holmoe. And basically some of the stuff that was said in this interview lends to what I've already been thinking. And sort of that's why I've been trying to get BYU people involved in this channel. I've done a video on them last week. It was pretty good. And it lends to the thought process that I've been thinking. BYU might be a national power sleeping giant. Let's talk about it. It's another wonderful day in the outlaw neighborhood. That's right, the outlaw posse is now in effect. That's right, and today's Four Horsemen shoutouts go to Richard Burton, Alice Stokes, Daryl Madden, and Dakota Green. They're saddled up and mounted up and they're ready to go and help me with this college football invasion. And if you want your badge and get deputized like those four people, all you got to do is join the Outlaw Posse. A little join button next to the subscribe button down there. Hit that join button. It's not $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. And if you're on an Apple phone, I think you'll have to go to your computer or laptop because it doesn't mesh with YouTube memberships for whatever reason. Also, I can be located on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it here. BYU seems like they're coming on a little bit. I saw a little bit of an interview. Actually, I saw the whole thing with John Kurtz and their athletic director, Tom Holmoe. I think it's his name. And it's a pretty good interview. Check that channel out. John Kurtz is a pretty good dude, although I think he's a little bit of a liberal. I won't hold that against him. But they had a nice little interview. And Tom basically was saying that, you know, BYU had been trying to get in the Big 12 for quite some time. They started back in 2016. They tried to get in, and that whole deal was nixed for whatever reason. A lot of people blame Texas and Oklahoma for that. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but you know, maybe some of you Texas and Oklahoma fans can tell me whether y'all had a part in delaying BYU and the other new four members that are now in there. I don't know if that's true or not. But they go on to say, I got some notes here. It says, BYU actually added money to the Big 12 with their huge alumni base and because of their worldwide known religion. Now, I know a lot of people don't like to play religion and all this, but it has a part in it, whether we want to admit it or not. It's just like Notre Dame, who hasn't won a national title in almost, 34 years? And yet they're still thought of real highly and pretty relevant as far as TV and stuff goes. So, them being the biggest religion in the world, I think has a lot to do with that. Just like BYU and the Mormonism is a pretty big religion. Also in these notes it says that the TV numbers were bigger than most Big 12 schools head to head. Even better than in-state Utah, who's been in a Power 5 conference for about 13 years. BYU was still getting better numbers TV-wise. So the fact that they're already there as far as TV numbers go, I mean, that was a big thing about adding G5 schools for the Big 12, is they was worried that the the TV people would frown upon it and not give them as much money, or they would put some kind of restrictive stipulation on it. And that's basically what they're saying now. It's like, hey, those 4 G5s we're all right with because they were the best of the best in the G5s, because BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and Central Florida, all pretty big markets and all got pretty nice little fan bases. The rest of them outside of that, they're probably right. They probably don't need to be adding any more G5 schools. But BYU had the numbers to be a Power 5 school a long time ago. And once Oklahoma and Texas leave the Big 12, here's a big question. So I might even do a separate podcast on this. Oklahoma and Texas were the two stalwarts as far as winning national championships for the Big 12 all the way back to the 1930s, when it was the Southwest Conference and the Big 8 and they were separated. The last team to win a national championship outside of Oklahoma and Texas, I think, was TCU back in the 1930s, or Texas A&M back in the 1930s. Both of those teams won national titles back in the 30s. But you add BYU to the mix, and suddenly the last Big 12 team to win a national championship is who, class? That's right. BYU would be the most recent national champion in college football. They won it in 1984. Even though some people try to take shots at it, it's valid. They were recognized by the two biggest media outlets of the time, the AP poll and the UPI/coaches poll. So BYU getting that Power 5 ticket finally, getting that Willy Wonka golden ticket, as I like to call it, may be the key to opening up a new blue blood program for college football. And that's what the Big 12 needs. Everybody thinks that when Oklahoma and Texas leave, that Oklahoma State or Kansas State or someone like that, or Texas Tech maybe, TCU, one of those 4 teams, maybe even Baylor, will become a blue blood. I just don't see that happening. They've never been a blue blood before, and now that Oklahoma and Texas are gone, I don't think that necessarily is the key for them going to being a blue blood, especially since they added BYU, who's already won a national championship, which the other ones have never done, except for TCU, and that was back in the 1930s. So going forward, in y'all's opinion, what team in the Big 12 could be that team that steps up and becomes the new blue blood? In my opinion, I think it could be BYU. Now, there's the 4 teams, if I had to choose, would be with BYU, TCU, Central Florida, and maybe Oklahoma State or Houston. But if I had to narrow that down to 2, it's obviously, to me, it would be BYU and TCU maybe, because TCU made it to the national title game, and TCU's got a pretty nice sized market they're in. Their fan base is not quite as huge. I mean, that may be the only deterring factor on that. And Central Florida, not only do they have a nice market in Orlando, in the middle of Florida, but they also have a huge alumni base. I think a really young alumni base. It's like 60,000, 70,000 people. Whereas someone like Houston, who's got a huge market, their fans are not as supported to me, and their fan base and their alumni is not as big as a lot of the Big 12 schools, in my opinion. I could be wrong on that. But another team, West Virginia, if they could ever get their shit together as far as a coach goes, I think West Virginia could be an outside dark horse national champion one day. But for the most part, this interview with Todd Holmoe has me believing that BYU may be on track to become the next new blue blood. Says in these notes that Holmoe also touched on the window for expansion. They talked about the Big 12 going forward. Will they add 2 more teams to maybe replace Oklahoma and Texas when they leave, so they can keep it at 14 like Roy Mark has expressed that he wanted to do? And he said that while he couldn't get into specifics, that the window's open right now, but it's about to close. he said that he thinks that the window for expansion would close by fall, which is why I think that if it doesn't get done by September, then we're going to have to wait till next offseason, is basically what he's saying. He said that that's something that the conference does not want hanging over their head during football season, which is the most profitable sport for just about every conference in college football. And then John asked him an interesting question about the angst that's going on between the Pac-12 and the Big 12. And of course, he's not just going to come out and admit that. But we all know there's some friction there. Why, I don't know. Pac-12 should be mad at the Big 10 for taking their shit. And Kevin Warren basically lying to them and luring them in and telling them not to expand and all that stuff. And then they turn around and take their teams from them. But they're not mad at the Big 10. They're mad at the Big 12 for whatever reason. And basically he said, look, we're not out to try to destroy the Pac-12. They're in a bad situation right now. There's no ill will. We're not out to destroy them. But just like them, we got to look out for ourselves when it comes to this expansion and realignment stuff. Everybody's got to do exactly what they need to do in order to survive at this point. And when it comes right down to it, the Pac-12 sort of cornered itself. They already screwed up by not inviting BYU because of religious reasons. And now they might lose Colorado and Arizona. I think they probably will lose Colorado and Arizona. If that does happen, then they'll have the 14 teams they want, and I think they will eventually go to 16. Like I said earlier, the TV networks have sort of expressed that they don't want any more G5 schools added unless they have some kind of astronomical numbers like BYU did. But I could see it, if they brought in 2 Power 5 schools like Colorado and Arizona, that they may allow for 2 more G5 schools to be added eventually, like a Memphis or a Tulane or somebody like that. Then they talked about something that was sort of left field. They was talking about the fact that the Big 12 wants to play some games in Mexico. The BYU AD Tom Holmoe said he was all for that because BYU has a strong, huge presence in Mexico with the Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ, which is their religion. And I don't know where they're going with that. I don't know if recruiting down there would be great, but I've got an old book, and I'm going to take some screenshots of it sometimes and share it with y'all. But it's an old book, and actually back in the day, back in the 1930s and 40s, even on into the 1960s, Arizona and New Mexico and Texas El Paso were all playing Mexican schools. So Mexico has a college football league. A lot of people don't know that. But they used to actually play American teams. So it's not a big stretch of imagination that maybe one day they can get their shit together down there in Mexico and get rid of all the crime, which I doubt that's ever going to happen. You might see Mexican colleges playing in the Big 12 or something. I don't know. I don't know where he's going with that, but it's just this interesting left field kind of thing. But that's the way your Mark is, man. He's always thinking outside the box. But that's just about all I got to say about that. You guys and gals, tell me what you think about all this. Do you think BYU is a blue blood on the cusp? Do you think that they are the Big 12's best opportunity going forward to maybe create a blue blood? Drop in the comment section. Tell me what you think. And, as always, there's a little heart down here. A little heart thanks button. If you want to give a one-time donation to the program, just hit that. Throw a few dollars in the coffers. And as I said earlier before, you can also join the Outlaw Posse for $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week, and get your badge, get deputized, get the 4 Horsemen shout out. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams' classes now officially dismissed.